And think of it as this collective think tank of responsible urban planning, government, education, development, bankers, all working together with something. The one common element, this is a 3-hour conference that cost a whole bunch of money, and they had the poorest man in the room on the microphone, that would be me. But it was amazing because big data was absolutely the theme that we had to take care of. John has an amazing vision for what we can do in downtown Salt Lake City. He has a perspective that not many people have in what's required for some of these larger corporations, the Pearl site, the incredible planning and foresight that's been executed down in Lehigh. Did I just say that? No sarcasm there whatsoever. As well as some of the future things that are going to be going on here. He's got a vision for what downtown Salt Lake City can be, and he's very in tune with some of the things that are happening and things that need to happen. Tamara Gaffney is probably the preeminent media analyst. Did I say analyst? As well as, and you're up for an award right now, or a group in Denmark or something like that?
No, UK. Yeah.
UK.
I actually won.
So
That's awesome.
she's actually won that. So she's routinely on CNN and everything else, and she's also proved to your children that it's okay and hip to be female and to be a geek.
Join me, ladies.
Yes. And also, you've had a couple of successful exits too, as well. You've been in
A couple successful and one unsuccessful.
Beautiful. And then also Drew is it Mingle?
Mingle.
Okay, awesome. The Utah Open Data, I guess it's called initiative, we'll learn a little bit more tonight, is that there has to be a approach to data where there's compliance and how it's tied into many types of open disclosure, and we'll talk about that as well. All right, with that stated, we're going to concentrate on, oops, that slide's in the wrong place. Hold on a second. It helps when you have things done beforehand. Give me a second, folks. There we go. All right. So for the next 20, 30 minutes, we're going to be addressing basically 6 categories. And we're going to be talking to those 6 categories with the experts that we have here. And we're going to hopefully provide for quite a bit of feedback from each of you. Of course, that's economy, education, employment, financial, government, and retail. All right, I'm going to start with retail. We'll start at the bottom, and we'll probably start with Tamara, and then we'll have the rest of the panel address this. Did anyone this year have any type of pickup on how Black Friday was a little bit different? Did you know beforehand that maybe that wasn't going to be the day to buy? Is there anything that you'd like to share with that since you did scoop the rest of the world?
Yeah. Okay, so let me just start with what do we have for data, right? Because that's what the basis of our conversation is today. So I work in that big palace in Lehigh. Anyone been by there? It's beautiful. It's awesome. And I'm super glad to have the job I have. It's the best job in the whole state, I swear to God. But basically, what I have at my disposal is some of the biggest data sets that you are ever going to see. Most of the e-commerce revenue is 9%. It's storing all the information about what's going on when you visit websites and you buy stuff, right? So I'm looking at 79% of every dollar spent for the holiday season in my data set. Not too bad. I was joking that we built a predictive model that told us, when the low price would be, what world problem. So that we can get our Adobe name in the press for free. That's my job. So I come up with something that's going to be interesting to go on, Fox Business or CBS or something like that. And what we come up with is, when is the lowest price day to shop online? Anyone have any thoughts? Ideas? What do you think? Was it Black Friday? No. When was it? Wrong.
No.
Lowest price day to shop online was Thanksgiving Day. If you did not start shopping the Monday before Cyber Monday, you missed the best window. And that was the data findings that we put out from this information on retail. The most interesting thing for the season, though, I will say, despite all of our information and despite all of the fantastic resources I have for our data collection, we totally missed one day. We absolutely blew it. I didn't talk about this very much in public, so again, don't tweet this, but there was a really, really big shopping day that happened in the United States for the first time ever, and it happened on a day called Singles Day in China, which is 11/11. Here's what's going on. The world has become so global for e-commerce, and programmatic pricing is now in place for most retailers that automatically drop prices on things when they see a lot of competition. So what happened is Chinese retailers infiltrated the United States on 11/11, which is their big shopping day, their version of Black Friday. And they triggered a chain reaction of price drops that I didn't see coming, which goes to show you how important big data is to your strategy. And it also goes to show you how important it is to know what's going on globally, because the world is no longer our little universe here. This is not it. So I'll stop now because I've probably said enough on retail, but I mean, I could go on, so come get me later.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the economy and ask some questions. Do the words avalanche center, resorts, conventions come to mind? Would we think that with what Bell's doing and everything else, that would be something that's involved in big data? Andy, you could probably speak to this as you're on the chair of Ski Utah, right, or on the board?
No, not on the board, just a member.
But you have like 15 passes.
Yeah.
Okay. From a standpoint of how all of those things together, from a recreational standpoint, ties into big data in Utah, I guess that we're probably one of the leaders in research for avalanche forecasting, and then also with the tie-in to be able to bring revenue into the state of Utah. Could you just talk to the resort industry a little bit?
Sure. Oh yeah. So there's the marketing push for Utah is really out of state. And if you look at where they concentrate bringing people in from, it's the East Coast and California to a certain extent, because they're not going to Tahoe anymore, right? Because if they want to play golf, they'll go to Tahoe, but not to ski. So originally, they would advertise when we got big dumps of snow here, like monster storm, big powder. But their audience were not people who could necessarily jump on a plane and just fly out here on a whim to come skiing. So what we found is that people started planning their ski vacations when the first snow fell where they are. So if you start your marketing campaign when the first snows hit the streets of New York or Boston, that's the first time the little trigger, I want to go skiing, ends in a brain. And it's far more effective. If you do the testing and the analytics on it, you get far more throughput. And the people in the Colorado Marketing Association are still in that old mode of advertising when they have a big dump, not when people who are actually thinking about planning the trip. So that's one aspect of it. The other is going on vacation and having a good time is highly, highly visual. So a lot of the promotion we're doing now is social media push and things like that. And the nice thing about that is you get the feedback loop closed. You get the likes, you get the retweets, you get the follows, you get the feedback mechanism out of those devices that you never got before by just putting an ad in a paper or in a magazine or anything like that. So, I mean, those are two things that they're kind of ahead of the game with the competition.
Gotcha. John, Drew, is there anything you'd want to contribute to that? Okay. From a governmental standpoint, the question came up in our conversation the other day. What is the value of big data to business? What does it bring to business? How does it help cultivate business, investment, and everything else? Kind of along those lines, John, with what we talked about at ULI, with the Urban Land Institute. What are some of the trends that you see that are in the Salt Lake City area? What you'd probably, I would guess, try to prevent from occurring north and south of us and instead of the city core, and things along those lines.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've got some thought, maybe some points I'd make. So kind of to answer that question, I'd build, a couple of thoughts with you. I think the economy that we're in today, it really depends on entrepreneurs like the people here. So it's great as a banker to be here today, but you never know if entrepreneurs like bankers or not, it depends. But I know some really great entrepreneurs that have borrowed a lot of money from banks, and smart entrepreneurs know where to get the most affordable capital, and that's the banks, and that's where I operate in the economy, and so I can see how capital is allocated. And I think that we're in a really interesting time in our economy. For 30 years of our life, we all operated in this economy where inflation was a given, and a lot of the baby boom generation was around in the 80s when we had this massive inflation, and they got burned by inflation and interest rates went up. And so a lot of my clients and a lot of people I work with, they're still really afraid of that. They're really interest rate sensitive and want to mitigate the risk of inflation. But we're in an economy right now where we're in uncharted waters, whether you realize it or not. The Federal Reserve has done some things with the economy that has never been done. It's unprecedented in the last 30 years. And so a lot of us are trying to get back to that economy, get back to the way it was for most of our life, that 30 years of, the 80s, the 90s, and the millennium. But I don't think it's coming back. There's potentially another shoe could fall because the Fed has blown up their balance sheet and really moved a lot of that capital that was misallocated in the heyday of 05, 06, 07 is now on their balance sheet, and they've got to figure out how to unwind that. And so right now you have talks about we're going to raise interest rates, and there's pressure to raise interest rates because banks are not making money. Half of our business is deposits and earning money on deposits, and with interest rates as low as they are, the only way for banks to make money is to make loans. So there's a lot of pressure to make loans, to make money, and it's really putting the banking industry in a drive for efficiency. So if you look in the economy, look at business today, banks are leading the charge for efficiency because they're not in a revenue growth mode. So that's kind of what's happening in the banking industry and the economy in general. And what I've found is that big data is an opportunity. The rules have completely changed. And now there's all kinds of new opportunities to make money and to become an entrepreneur and to grow a business. And I think we're seeing that. There's technological disruption in the economy that goes along with this new paradigm of how the economy is structured. And I think big data is going to be really key to those people who can figure out the trends and identify those trends. You'll have a massive competitive advantage. So to answer that question, Joel, here's what I would tell you. There was one company up here I didn't notice when you put up the list of companies for big data that's in Salt Lake that you think of them as a real estate company. They're the largest cap company in Utah. It's Extra Space Storage. Now their business is simple. They build self-storage properties They don't build them in Utah. They're on the East Coast and the West Coast, and they're the largest manager and operator of self-storage properties in the United States. Public Storage is actually a bigger cap company. They're an amazing company. The entrepreneur was Ken Woolley, and Spencer Kirk were partners. Spencer Kirk came from the technology side of the business. And I will tell you, as their banker and they're a public company, you can look at a lot of this yourself, so I'm not sharing information that's confidential, but they became very good at mining their own data. And they became experts in the self-storage business by looking at their own business and looking at their data. And they figured out things like, I can raise the rates after 6 months, but I can't raise them at 5 months. Because how did they figure that out? They did focus groups and they took their database of they own 1,000 properties. They have a great data set to play around and to experiment. And a lot of their customers became basically their guinea pigs to run research. And I would argue today, nobody knows more about self-storage than Extra Space. They're the leader in the industry. So that's what we're talking about in this new economy, how you can really use big data to gain a competitive advantage.
Cool. Andy, Tamara, anything for that? Okay, awesome. Drew, could you explain a little bit about what open data is? What does it mean to us versus to the governmental? Is there an advantage for me in having open data? Can I see things
Yes.
that I couldn't see before?
Yes, there's a couple things. And let me just dovetail on something that you were saying relative to the value of big data to the economy. Everybody's heard of McKinsey & Company, the consulting company back east. I would urge you guys to check out a report that they released last year called Flowing Data. And they estimate that the value of open data to the economy is right around $3 trillion. So here's some examples, because a lot of people I assume out here are in private industry. Here is one example of how the government opening data or others opening data can actually create economic value. In that report, there was a company out of Canada, which was a mining company called Red Cloud. And they had a huge swath of land there, but they didn't exactly know where to drill. So one of their executives came up with the idea that they would release, wasn't a massive amount, I believe it was something like 50 megabytes of topographical information on the land that they owned in Canada, and they set aside $500,000 in prize money for whoever could tell them where to drill on their land. They just opened it up to the public. Oh, it gets better. It was actually a company in Australia who had never even been to Canada, who looked at the data, analyzed it, told the company exactly where to drill, and the company was able to pull roughly $8 billion worth of gold out as an investment for that 500,000. You have people in Australia that have the ability down there to look at this data, download the maps and say, drill here, here, and here. That is mentioned in that McKinsey report. So there is a huge effort. Piece of legislation that was passed this last congressional session. Does anybody know? There was only one. It's called the Data Act of 2013, the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act. Here's what's happening. Republicans know that their policies are right. Democrats know that their policies are right. Nobody can prove anything because nobody can get access to the data because it's all in these little teeny silos. So the Data Act was passed overwhelmingly by the Republicans and the Democrats. There's an executive order and an OMB directive that requires the entire federal government to make all of their data open and public and in machine readable fashion so that people like yourselves can get access to it. Now, as a way, just as a reminder, does everybody remember in the mid-'80s when they released all of the GPS data that the federal government did? Everybody looked at it and just said, who cares? Well, now you have companies that are worth billions of dollars, like Garmin, who've taken that data and essentially monetized it. Here's another one. When they released all of the weather data back in the 80s too by the national NOAA, same thing. You now have companies that have taken that public free data that the federal government has put out there for anybody to use, anybody to create services for the public, and weather.com right now is, I think, worth right around $10 billion. So the state of Utah has gotten on board with this, and that's where I now work. I'm the open data coordinator. And the state is pulling every single piece of data from every single state agency. Every one of those things, probably with the exception of retail data, we've already got in our site. We have economic data for the state of Utah going all the way back to 1947. We've got gross state product, we have employment, we have unemployment, we have wages by every payroll sector by NAICS code that you can even imagine. So we're in the process of mapping all of this data in, and our goal really is to make this available to you folks for you to look at it and to do whatever you think that you can use it for. In Missouri, they're taking all of their weather data and they're doing early warning apps they're creating for citizens to download to tell them when tornadoes are about to hit. Chicago, which is a really interesting one, has recently created an app where you can tell exactly where the snowplows are in your neighborhood. You just pull it up, and it's a way to use the Internet of Things in an open data fashion for the state governments and city governments and county governments to make the data available for you folks to do whatever you want. So we have police data. We've partnered with Salt Lake City. We've put all of the police data for the last 3 years in our opendata.utah.gov portal. Does anybody know the most common day of the week that your car is going to get stolen in Salt Lake? Thursday mornings, every year. Most common time, 8 o'clock in the morning. So, what does that matter? Go look up a company called Predpol. It's recently been invested with a lot of different venture capital companies. It stands for, this is where it gets kind of
Minority Report?
Predictive policing.
Yeah.
There are companies that claim they can look at crime data. I believe that the city of Atlanta, Oakland, and several other cities now are on this, where they can predict where a crime is most likely going to occur in your city, thereby reducing the cost, sending officers there before it happens. And
Wow.
Yes, Predpol. Look it up, Predpol. And it's really interesting stuff. So that kind of dovetail on what you were saying.
We're going to have a privacy conversation.
And it's de-identified data. It's down to the block level, so you can't necessarily drill into it. But you can look at, we have maps of different crime arrests by type of crime, and you can actually predict that on certain street corners, 7% of the Fridays, there's going to be a drug bust there. So you can look at the data, and you can load it up into R, SAS, whatever you want, and you can get some pretty interesting things there.
How much of that do you get from NSA?
We're actually, again, this is all public data. This is open data that we're just feeding in there in a dynamic feed from that's Salt Lake City data. So,
Joel, and I have to jump in on this one really quick because I spent all summer working on the air quality competition. I worked directly with the state on getting all of this data, and there was no nice, beautiful portal before back in June of last year. And if you go out to it now, it's wonderful. I mean, it's very easy to use. It's really nice. All the data's there. If this was June of last year, if it was all there, I would have had such a better summer, you know, with the air quality competition. But yeah, I have to give them huge props for that. And definitely check out, it's it's utah.open.gov or something like
it's opendata.utah.gov. And we have the most robust data repository in the entire country in just the first 4 months.
Absolutely.
And just to one more thing, we have leadership now at the state under the CIO, Mark Van Orden and Dave Fletcher, who are really committed to taking Utah to the next level, and they're absolutely doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long would we have a competitive benefit there? How long is it going to take the rest of the country to catch up? Is there some of the things that you've done that could be rolled out into the other states for our benefit?
Absolutely. We've mapped in data from Department of Labor, Department of Commerce. I mean, we've mapped it all in. Say you're a citizen and you're thinking of moving to Sandy. You want to know what the crime rates are. You want to know what the school grades are for your school in those particular neighborhoods. We've mapped all of that up and put it in a nice geocoded map where you can just kind of go over. You can see all the crimes in the neighborhood. So it allows you to make a more informed decision without having to go to State Office of Education site, the crime, the police site, and all these other ones. So we're trying to just put all of this data into one central place to really allow a service for taxpayers so they can get access rather than having to go to this data site, this data site, this data site. It's just it's a good service for the taxpayers and citizens.
Wow.
And it's actually funded from SB 70, which is the Government Transparency Board under the direction of Senator Deidre Henderson. And we're now reaching out to the city of Logan and the county folks, and our goal is to get as many cities and counties in this platform so that people in this audience can get access to that data without having to spend weeks and weeks and weeks getting the data like Joel did.
That's probably going to make Vivint really happy. Bad joke, sorry. Let's talk about education for a little bit, everybody that's on the board. I'm terribly concerned about the fact that I have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 7-year-old that I believe is being woefully prepared for the workforce with the Common Core and everything else that's out there. If I were a parent, or like days of code type of things, good things to create interest with the kids, what do they need to be ready for in 5-10 years to be able to be in a competitive work environment, the tech in general, but specifically knowing some of the things that we have here in the state that would give them a leg up on being in an employable position to be able to take advantage of some of the things that are here versus other people coming in from out of state to take their employment opportunity. Whoever would like to start with that.
I'll start. So you heard us talk about the global nature of data twice now. We talked about an Australian company coming in to solve a Canadian problem with data that never been there. We've talked about, the importing of a competitive retail environment overnight because of data, right? So we're not talking about competing against other states. We are definitely talking about competing against other countries. And we all know that we're behind in some of our math and science, and we have them. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's something we're going to solve, here. It's really not. We're not the experts to solve that. But it is something that we have to be considering as what happens inside of many organizations, including Adobe, is this thing we call data democratization, which basically means it's now kind of put out there for everyone to do what they want with it, which is great because people innovate in ways that we never imagined, but it's also potentially creating a lot of competition, right? For your business as well, as for the global economy we're in. So one of the things we do have though in Utah, and I think this is really interesting, being at Adobe, and I'm from California, I'm a Silicon Valley transplant. So I will tell you some perceptions of Utah that have turned out to be true and others have not. But basically, one of the things that I have on my team, I have 5 people on my team, and they all speak 1 or 2 other languages. And actually some data is language dependent. So, consider that, right? Because we definitely have some advantages in that area. We also have some advantages in our ability to access data through some of the things that Nick and Pat were talking about with our big pipes and the fact that we have high-speed access in a lot more places than other places in the world and in the country have. So those are a couple of advantages I can think of off the top of my head. On the other hand, disadvantages, and I'm going to have to bring this up because I'm lonely. I want more women in technology in Utah. We need to foster, in particular, and I'm not suggesting that this is an either or, it's more of an and, but we need to foster a lot more women in science and women in technology as well. And big data and data analysis and data science, there's no gender bias in it naturally. It's a great new area, and it's an area that I've been super successful in, although I kind of consider I'm a bit of a data poser because I can't even calculate a tip without my iPhone. But anyway, but the reality is that this is a great opportunity, and we are not known for being very good in terms of how we are with the female workforce in the state. So a couple of goods, a couple of bads, and then other thoughts.
Yeah, John, you've shared with me a vision that you have for downtown with a really good school and everything else like that.
I would just add a couple lines. I think those are great comments. I think, let's see. We've attended some things. Natalie Gochner is kind of an expert on this, and she's out leading the charge. I think right now, if you've been to any conferences with Natalie Gochner, she's an economist up at the U and with the Chamber of Commerce and stuff, and she'll definitely show you it's a fact. We're not spending enough on education. And in this state, it used to be something we were proud of, and I think we were doing a lot with what we had. I think a lot of that we have, we need to back off the school districts because I think we have some really pretty smart people in education that are committed and doing a great job. I know that for a fact from some of the people we've met, and they have really great ideas. But we're not, as a state, spending, we're not keeping up. And I think some of that, it's great that we have a AAA credit rating and that we're a very conservative state. But then sometimes I think the risk is we underestimate our true potential. And we're going to pay the price if we don't really get committed to educating our children. And the last thing I would say is I don't know that it has to be that expensive. I think with technology and the things that are changing, I mentioned a drive to efficiency in banking. I think you need the same kind of effort in the education system with the changes in technology and everything that's going on today. I'm sure there's more efficient models and efficient ways to educate our children and really make a difference. But I think as a state, everybody needs to wake up and realize this is a really big issue. It might be the major issue that we have. I think the governor just committed to increasing spending on education, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So very quickly, I really like what you're saying there on both of you guys. Thank you for bringing that stuff up. And I wanted to touch on some things related to interest as well, because yes, we need to get the funding in there, and that hopefully we'll keep pushing forward to make that happen. But we need to understand why this is valuable for us, and the kids need to understand why it's valuable for them and get involved. When we talk about women in technology, a lot of that can be traced back, according to some articles that I've read, back to gaming, not to her brand and everything there, right? But in the long run, games and everything else that was created around technology and all the advertising and marketing related to it 20, 30 years ago was kind of focused towards men. We have to start creating the things that are going to be interesting to all people, because it does relate to all people. And there isn't necessarily a reason why one gender should be doing stronger than another gender in this particular area, just like Tamara mentioned. But start thinking about why this is interesting for you, and then help your kids catch that vision. Help their friends catch that vision. Help the teachers catch that vision and move it forward. Education is trying to find new ways to innovate, but they're not going to be able to do that all by themselves. As entrepreneurs, as others, you need to be able to step in and provide some of your ideas as well. Going back to community, if we're not all working together on this, it's not going to solve itself.
Okay. I'm just going to coach the meeting for a second. Scott, could you address what you guys are doing? You'll have to talk about. Now, Scott told he and Anna do a TED Talk here locally. With what's coming up at the TED Talk this year, this is very contingent. And it's very pertinent. Yeah, good.
I kind of got put on the spot here. I wasn't expecting this.
Of course not.
We're just getting ramped up for TEDx Salt Lake City. It's going to be happening in September of this year at the Kingsbury Hall. And our theme this year is upcycle your thinking. So you guys are getting a preview. I don't think it's been released yet, so send it to tweets.
On the spot.
Upcycle your thinking, and basically we're going to be focused on more of a technological theme this year. More about ideas, innovation, technology, STEM, anything like that. So keep your eyes out. February 1st, the speaker applications will be available online, and anybody who thinks they have a wonderful idea that they want to talk to Salt Lake City and the world about, then you're welcome to apply.
Sorry to put you on the spot there, but it's completely pertinent to what we're talking about. And it's awesome. Andy, please.
We've gone kind of long on education. I'll do a couple quickies. One is who thinks the college tuition cost is absolutely out of control, right? Show of hands.
Yes.
Sure. I thought I would get a lot of response on that. So a lot of the colleges right now use predictive analytics to model what you, as an incoming student, are going to do. They're going to say, this student's going to graduate in 4 years, this student's going to drop out, this student's going to take 6 years, this student's going to come back for their MBA afterwards. By the time you submit all the information for your admission process, you're part of a big data set that's helping them model what their future looks like. Because part of a college's revenue stream is not just getting you to graduate, but to get a successful job and then start going back to that college. So they're really, really big on this big data predictive analytics. And you're nice enough to give them all your financial information when you apply for your loan, so that has a lot to do with it. They also incorporate big macro factors like recession and things like that. The second is, I don't know if you guys, this just kind of flipped through the radar last week. The GED exam. Has everybody heard about this? They changed it, and now about 1/20 of the people who take it pass it. And they have people who are like PhDs and MBAs all failing this test now. They can't even pass it anymore since they changed the new test. What does this have to do with anything else? Well, studies have shown that prison recidivism goes down dramatically if you can get somebody to pass their GED. The amount of earning potential that you have goes way up just having your GED versus not. It contributes to a host of societal factors, and by not allowing people to pass it, almost puts them behind the 8 ball. And this study came out, and nobody kind of blinked an eye. I think they really need to go back and take a look at this, because it'll have cascading ramifications if they don't fix it.
Wow. So big data is basically forming, changing school, how we're educated, what we consume from an actual intellectual stimulus standpoint too. Just kind of scary. Employment, and I gotta use one of your quotes here, okay? If they move the prison, they will come. Is that kind of like?
That is my quote.
And you guys can probably, that's what we're talking about there. I mean, you're blowing my mind with the GED part, but one of the conversational points we had the other day is start here, stay here. How do we keep our truly best and brightest here? And one of the other things that we talked about the other day, and it was very much a hot point in ULI, is the building of a community and a culture that can keep our best and brightest here, the ones that we do successfully educate and that can do things. What are thoughts on that? I mean, John, Drew, do you have any thoughts on what we can do with the employment situation?
Actually, yes. In my previous life, I built a $9 million data warehouse that combined all of the state's 43 school districts, charter schools, higher ed institutions. And we have the ability to take higher education graduates by major and degree, strip their record of all personally identifying information, we take their social security number, we pass it over to DWS, and we can get a 10-year longitudinal history of this student and what impact his higher ed degree had or didn't have. We actually now have the ability to actually tell exactly which degrees and which majors are going to work in which specific industry sectors. So because we've put together these large data repositories, we can now isolate certain economic sectors like our governor has tried to do and see exactly what kind of higher education graduates we're pumping into those specific sectors, and then go back to the higher ed people and say, look, you need to crank out more. It's sad to say, but let's look at it like it is. We're producing students to go into industry. I spent 15 years in higher ed. This is really what our job is. And here's the interesting thing, and here's where people in this audience can really help. 65% of all chancellors and provosts in higher education feel they are doing a very good job educating people to go into the workforce. What percentage of CEOs do you think higher ed is doing a very good job? Anybody know? It's called the skills gap.
12.
10. It's around 10 to 12% is what it is. So you've got higher ed thinking they're doing a really good job. You have people in industry saying, you're not giving us what we need. And there is a mismatch. And the legislature has actually appropriated money here within the state for us to study that. But one of the ways that we can solve that, in fact, what you were saying, is to have people in industry speak out to your higher education institutions and tell them what you're teaching these people is not what we really need. And especially in the IT world, things change so fast. What you learn your freshman year a lot of times is obsolete by the time you're a senior. I mean, we've all been through that. I mean, new language every other month, it seems like we gotta earn.
I learned COBOL.
Punch cards.
Nice, assembly.
We're trying
So, yeah, so one of the things I want to talk about, employment. Adobe's obviously a very big employer and one that has a great, environment, great place to work. It's been on the great places to work for a long time. So let me talk about employment from that standpoint. And also, may I just make one small pitch that I have 3 job openings in my team. So, so please find me and send me your best candidates. But anyway, the fact is that I have had an intern from a MBA program 2 out of 3 years that I've been doing the program that I'm doing. And the only reason why I didn't have them the 3rd year was because I failed to convert them the first 2 years. All right, so here's what happens. I go out, I get someone really excited, they come to Utah for their internship, woohoo, they have a great internship, everything seems great, I try to get them a full-time job, and they go to Seattle to work for Amazon. Or they go to the Bay Area to work at a startup. Or they go to Boston. And the reality is that for a lot of the young people who are really the best and the brightest coming out of school, they don't want to start their careers here. So we have a lot of folks who are, sort of later 30s, mid 40s, I'm not going to say where I am in there, but the reality is that we have a lot of folks who want the quality of life, who want the work-life balance, who want the family, kids, and all that stuff, but we don't have the early stage employees here. And if we do, some of them are not nearly as high a caliber as the ones that are coming in from some of the other educational institutions. I'm not saying that ours are bad, we have some great talent. But for example, in marketing, we don't have as much talent here as we do in finance and accounting, for example. So, so we do have some challenges with employment here, but we also have some benefits, right? So people like me move here because we're like, hey, look at this house I can get. Awesome, right? And I actually might afford to pay it off. This is great. So, and yeah, skiing and schools that we can talk about whether they're good or bad, but the reality is that for the money, the schools here, from my impression versus Silicon Valley, I would have paid $35,000 a year for my child to go to school there for a decent education. Here, I pay $500 a month, and I actually pay, which is unusual. So this is, we have some goods, we have some bads. You want to talk employment? John?
Sure, you want to?
Andy?
I'll just say Utah, there's not a better place for job growth. I mean, if you look at the numbers and the data, and other than North Dakota, we're the #1 job engine. And if you look at since the downturn post-recovery, we've created more jobs. We've, it's just a great, Utah is a great place for jobs. I agree with everything, what you're saying. I think what I would add to that is, experience I had over the Christmas break. I have a 21-year-old daughter that's in college, and she came home, and she was super excited for this new show that was coming out on Netflix. Does anyone have any idea what it was?
Have some thoughts.
Nope. No, it's Friends. Friends, if you look on Netflix, all the episodes of Friends are just now on Netflix for the first time. I sat down and I watched the first episode, the very first pilot of Friends. I don't know what year, it was in the 90s or something. And the light bulb went off, and I realized this is what the millennials are all about. The millennials want to live in 24/7 cities. They want to live in Seattle. Their whole career is in front of them. They want the Friends model. They want to live in a big city with their friends. They don't want to get married. They want to have flexibility and freedom. They want to collaborate down in a coffee shop like Holodesk kind of place. And that's the millennials. Now, I was at a conference with really interesting guy that you probably know, tech guy Rick White, who founded Fusion.io. Then he sold it to SanDisk, and he confirmed what I'm telling you. He said in his business, what he's found successful is he can bring the techies and the programmers that are in the later stages of their career. They want to settle down, they want to get married, they want to have a house, they want to live in Suncrest, or, that they're done with that Friends experience. And I think that's what our challenge is, with Utah right now and with the places we create. And that's kind of where I get involved with Urban Land Institute, is you look at the development. If we really want to attract the millennials, those younger stage millennials, we have to do a better job of creating. It's the new buzz in real estate is an 18-hour city. We're not going to get 24/7 here in Salt Lake. It's not going to happen. But I think an 18-hour city is achievable. We have there. It's possible, and I think with government support, there's some things that could really happen in the downtown. I'd like to see downtown Salt Lake become the flagship, school system, high school. Talk about some of the things that we've done, innovate and create a really efficient, wonderful high school. So people say, the flagship school in our state is in downtown Salt Lake City. I work on Main Street in Second South, and one thing that we could use is the county could build a state-of-the-art, really fantastic rec center that is on the west side, that is closer to downtown, that would create another amenity that would bring people downtown. Right now I live in Cottonwood Heights. It's a great rec center out where I live, but where I work, there's really nothing unless I want to drive up on the hill or join a private club. So those are just some other things. I think one other thing about downtown, it would be great to see a data center or a data hub. Ancestry DNA, I think, has potential to really drive interest in data center here, and they've got some great data that they own. The University of Utah, the biomed and the stuff that they're doing. How fantastic would it be to have the school system, great amenities like a rec center or public places to gather, community centers in downtown, and be known in the country as, a data hub in downtown. So that's kind of my vision for downtown, and kind of goes with jobs. But I think at the end of the day, it's matching up the jobs. If we had more people here, we probably would have a bit more job growth than we have. We're held back by the number of people we can hire. I mean, our employment rate's at a point now that that's a problem. You talk to people and they can't get enough. They won't come here because they can't get people.
Well, from a clock standpoint, I'm guessing that there might need to be a trip over there and to directions down there. If you haven't tweeted yet, if you haven't done the text yet, please let Barry or myself know if you're going to want to be able to talk about this afterwards. We'll probably have a little bit of conversation about financial, and I do have a stand-in for you if you need to take off, but if you need me for the QA, that's fine. It's up to you. So with that, if we have a big hand for Andy, for Drew, for John, for Tamara. Let's take about 10, 15 minutes. Let's get some stimulation going on here. There's some pretty interesting things talked about here, and there's a whole bunch of you out there that can make a difference. So I'll call it to order in about 10, 15 minutes. Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah.
Here's the only thing.
I'm really interested.
I supported who's not what they're making. But one is $9,000, one is $29,000. Now, if you are a university in Utah, do you want that information now?
It's not a private center. You're identifying the computers, so rather than having to put it out, you bring them in. They're here. You probably need to know what they're available.
And we actually created this system so that there's a thing called RIS-2 from the United States Department of Labor. It stands for the Wage Record Interchange System. It is a 29-state compact in agreement where if you go and you graduate from Utah State and you go to work in Pocatello, or if you graduate from Dixie State College and you go to work in Las Vegas, 29 states have agreed to share wage data so that the higher education institutions can track how well their graduates did or did not do. Each state has different laws that govern how granular that data can be, but ours is fairly robust.
Okay, so you're tracking them, but you're not like making assumptions of what they'll end up with or salary wages based off of that.
No, but one of the things that we use that for is, and I'm a single dad, I have 3 daughters that I'm raising. Things have changed over time. It used to be that if you got a bachelor's degree in anything, you were guaranteed to have a certain amount of wage or employability. That's just really no longer the case. We have these things called reverse transfers, where we have students who graduate from higher education institutions with 4-year bachelor's degrees, and they end up circling back and going into community colleges or applied technology colleges to obtain certifications that actually can get them employment. We can tell exactly which majors lead to employment and which majors don't. It's a pretty robust system, and we're now working to get that data a little more available to the public. There's some legislation that probably needs to happen to make that a little, even though it should be available, it can be somewhat difficult to get access to it.
Can I say something that's not exactly tongue-in-cheek, and sorry to cut you off, Tamara? Is there anything we can do with those 29 states to legislate change in the disparate wage differences between males and females?
Well, I think what Barry is saying about all this government stuff is that this is for us to innovate on, right? This isn't for the government to kind of come out and say this is the answer. This is for us all to look at and say, okay, let's look at it 500,000 different ways until we figure it out. And whoever figures it out first wins a lot of money, right? So that's what we're saying.
And that could be us.
And that's big data, and that's entrepreneurship all in one.
Pat, you had a comment. You got a mouthful. We'll go somewhere else real quick.
Can I add on to that?
His comment and having a mouthful.
I'm just saying, like I moved from Raleigh, North Carolina 3 months ago, started a business here. And women there make more money than men. And Raleigh is boring. It's horrible. Salt Lake's way better, but not much. But it has outdoor recreation, right? So we can ski and hike and do everything we want to do. So why don't we look at places like that? What are they doing to gain all these educated individuals that are young, besides paying them more? Why don't we model it?
Barry, you have something?
Well, that's my big question, is if we build it, they will come. We have built it and they're leaving. And we've got to address that. And I wonder, part of it could be, are we incentivizing these employees as well as we could so that they really like their job and want to stay? And then the other is the community. Are we creating what they want and need? It's the outdoor world. It's here in space. Nobody's got better. But the nightlife, we're struggling.
I managed to get intoxicated.
So
I don't think they would stay just to watch that thing.
I'm going to quickly jump in on the education talk, and I try not to plug or, put out too many of my things, but there's also a conference that we do for high school students to get high school students excited about computer science, excited about STEM and things like that. And we do that conference once a year. We do it with all the school boards around the state, and we get about 500 or 600 students out. And we present to them about different technologies we do, either games or databases or predictive analytics or all sorts of really cool things. And it's all about inspiring kids to get into computer science. And it's coming up in March. If you're interested in speaking, you can come and see me. I can give you my card. I can make sure that you get an invite to come and speak. But it's all about inspiring those kids to get into those groups. The more we can do this here at our own state, the better off they are of staying, the better off they're getting into this place that we all need them to be. In 10 years, we all need them working in computer science. We know that. So let's get them involved in it now. So just wanted to mention that as well. You can come see me about that event.
So really quickly, I just wanted to say something about us needing to be honest about the differences in the wage gap and everything else. And it's not just numbers. Just today, I talked to somebody who's a data analyst who was making $40,000 a year, where the peers and subordinates on a team are making at least twice as much. Another individual is making 3 times as much, and was told that the reason why this individual is not making as much money is because she has flexibility in her schedule. And she works 70 to 80 hours a week at $40,000 a year. Oftentimes here in Utah, we think about what other people might have as a problem or other things. Yes, this happens amongst the larger populace, but we need to think about what we're doing in our own lives that might be causing some of this discrimination. And start being honest with ourselves. Are we doing something to help enable somebody else to be successful, regardless of their gender, their race, or anything else about it? Again, back to community, again, back to big data, again, back to the fact that there really isn't a difference between who can be successful in this industry or not, based off of their age or gender or any of these other things. Let's not pretend like that's a reality. Let's make the reality that we can all be successful and we should all be paid for it.
Hey, I want to add one thing before we move on to a question, and I'm sorry for taking away time from your questions, but I think this is important. One of them is, I really, really strongly believe that entrepreneurship is the path. If you start the company, then you get to decide, right? And I see an awful lot of really, really go-getter entrepreneurs here in this state that makes me really heartened for that future. So I don't want to kind of get all like down about this, right? Because this entrepreneurship stuff that we're talking about, along with big data, which enables a lot of smaller companies to actually start from nothing without needing a lot of capital, because we have access to these big open data platforms, and like social media is almost all open, and we've done a lot of great things with that. So there's a lot of places we can go, and we can build stuff from nothing, and we can take over a lot of really high-paid positions just through entrepreneurship. So I want to kind of be a little bit more upbeat about that, but also. I also want to say something about a little too much emphasis on data and technology, all right? I'm just going to give the contrarian opinion. I want to hire some journalists because we also need to be able to tell stories with stuff. And here's the problem with what's going on with data and analytics. We have analysis people who are so involved in their data, and they are so precise that when you have an explanation from them about what they're seeing, it boggles your mind, and if you're an executive manager, you just completely turn off. Completely. I'm like, I can't even tell you some of the conversations I've had with my team. Well, it's not really causal, but our indications are it might be sort of okay to say. And I'm like, no, guys, just, does anyone in the world have any better data? No? Well, let's go for it. Let's not worry about precision to the nth degree. And the problem with scientists is that they kind of get really stuck in the mud. And really down in those weeds, right? So I'm actually also advocating for that other side of the brain, because it is art and science. And I wanted to just raise the point in this conversation, because we've talked an awful lot about science, that we also need to be considering the art part.
While Barry moves over to you, sir, I do have a question. Anthony, are you still around? Anthony Power? Okay. So you had a question about, is the state going to collaborate with other jurisdictions to license open data? Is there anything you'd like to add to that, or is that pretty much?
No, if the state is taking the lead to be able to solve that problem, there's all kinds of opportunities for a state to share with other jurisdictions. For instance, the Department of Corrections in Alaska licenses Montana's correctional software system. So all kinds of revenue opportunities, even at the governmental level.
I think the question is is it our intention to collaborate with other municipalities, cities, counties? Is that what, is that?
States, beyond Utah.
I don't know how much of an interest that the state of Utah would have in other states' data. We have tried to upload all of that data so that users can actually compare cancer rates in Utah to surrounding states, your counties to other counties. We don't right now have actual software that we've made that we would be licensing, although I do know that there are certain states that are interested in purchasing and using our Utah Future software that DTS, where I work, has. So that's definitely out there. It's a great business model for states. I totally agree with you. Absolutely.
Did I have a question? On education, I think, I wish Mr. and Mrs. Staker could have been here, that deal with Clayton Christensen's Blended Learning Institute. One of the things that happens in education, there's disruptive technologies and there's sustaining technologies. And what's happening in education is that the classroom is being sustained. No, the classroom is, is being disrupted by implementing some of these technologies. And the school itself is, in some instances, is becoming more of a community center, supportive of parents and of children in their family life. And I think there might be some models occurring here in Utah. I know AISU that took over the 49th Street Galleria is providing some of these things. We went and visited one of the Montessori schools and were very, very impressed with the way. In fact, what was fun was one of the parents was informed that they needed to get their kids out of the Montessori school before they got used to too much freedom. I think there's, remember the founders of Google both were Montessori kids. I think there's room for a lot of innovation here in Utah. I'm not so concerned about dollars per student as I am about how those dollars are implemented. And I think by blending some of these technologies with the current facilities that we have, I'll talk more about that some other time about the Academy, which is the school that I want to found, which is built on pioneering skills and principles as well as entrepreneurship as well as STEM. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Barry, I know you've got some other questions, but Thor, knowing your background in legal, in title, so real estate, which can kind of tie into John, as well as machine learning, with the categories that we addressed up here, is there anything that you can speak to? This isn't as much of a Q&A, but just kind of carrying on the conversation when it comes to big data and legal.
Well, when you were talking a little bit about the state putting data online, one of the things that came to mind instantly for me from a legal standpoint was whether or not data about cases in Utah is going to be available.
No personally identifiable information.
Not necessarily personally identifiable, but just statistically, that type of data about, is that going to involve court-related data, or is that too personally identifiable?
We haven't even come close to going down that road yet.
Okay.
We're just trying to get all the, employment, education data, energy data, everything else.
Yeah, my mind was starting to turn over things that a firm could easily do with that data to help create more predictive models for, should we be settling this case, what's likely to happen, things of that nature. So in my mind, big data presents tremendous opportunities. It's just up to the individual within their own sphere to come up with a creative application of how to analyze that data, look at it differently, what they can do from a predictive standpoint. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities there, but I guess I'll have to wait until the next generation of privacy to get more data in the legal area.
I can't remember who said it earlier, but I mean, just a good revisit from the original panel is, if you want a job in Utah, you've got it. It's simply a matter of, there's plenty of opportunity and prosperity here, but it's the whole concept of being able to pair them better by knowing that they're here and then being able to reach out to them. That was along those same lines, just kind of a mind. I won't use the word that I typically would. Barry.
Along the lines of what you were just talking about before we had gotten into the open data, which is exciting, it's way cool. And my mind immediately went to a number of recent current events that maybe even more often than not, the subversive, even criminal element jumps on things like this before regular business people. Ooh, there's data and we can figure stuff out.
I thought about that.
That was my thought too, was, wow, criminals can make their own mobile app to figure out, right? And I saw that data sing back, right? When your own prediction kind of impacts itself. And that's something that we're going to start to see more of, probably as data democratization happens, as open data for government happens. People will use it for good, people will use it for bad, and it's going to start to impact itself. That's one of the things too that I want to say about algorithms. Everyone talks about algorithms, it's kind of a big thing, right? And you can make millions and billions of dollars if you have a fantastic algorithm, just ask Google. So what the problem though with algorithms is that people think they can build one and then they just go home. But the algorithm changes it because it impacts itself. And that's something that we see with some of our Adobe products as well, is that you're never done innovating these products because you have to keep changing the algorithm because you change the world with the algorithm. So this is some interesting kind of phenomenon going on as data becomes more available.
Any other comments on that? Barry, you have a question?
Yeah, so you kind of touched on this a little bit, but can you describe for us the selection process for the various data sets? And what can we do if there's a particular area that we find interesting that isn't available today? What can we do to encourage, influence, whatever, the availability of that data?
We want it all. Our strategic plan calls for us to approach each state agency and to get their top 10 data sets, which is kind of the project plan that data.gov had and all the different federal agencies. Of course, I'm in an interesting situation where if I don't get a response for an agency, I'm just going to go create a script and just run it against their servers and find every single piece of data they got. No, this is really what I've done, and I've just grabbed it all. And so our goal, if I can speak on behalf of DTS and the Government Transparency Board, is to get as much data as we can in there for people like you. And in specific response to your very last question, on our website, opendata.utah.gov, we actually have a button on there where if you do not see a data set, we want to hear from you like you can't believe, because we're going to get that feedback. We're then going to go to that state agency and we're going to say, look, we have people from the public who are requesting this. You've got to give it to you. It is state law and it's federal law. But if we don't hear from you, we don't have that additional, things that we can go to those state agencies, because it's all about breaking down these data silos, and it's a difficult thing. We combine all of these different school district data. I mean, and it's people's entire career has been, opening up this little door, letting a little bit of data out, and then closing it as quick as they can, because they know once they open that door and we start writing the software that's just going to go grab that data on a consistent basis, then sometimes it can be a challenge. So go to, again, opendata.utah.gov, and there is a feedback. Don't see a data set on there, let us know. If you find anything wrong with any of our data sets, there's even a comment section there. You can add a comment. It gets sent straight to me. So please, let us know. The more you can tell us you want, the better. We're just trying to get it all.
Okay, let's take a couple more, then we're going to do some closing statements here.
Okay, Tamara, you had mentioned earlier that 11/11 incident, it kind of caught you off guard.
Incident? You mean trillions of dollars?
that little thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you learn something from that now you would be better prepared for something like that happening again? Or is that like until it happens, we don't know?
Well, yeah, so predictive models. Our data goes back to 2008, which means we've covered elections, we've covered down economies, we've covered, macro things. Unfortunately, with data sets, sometimes, you have to have something happen to you before you actually can build it into your model or even realize it's a factor. And that's one of those examples. So yes, now we recognize that global commerce trends are part of the model. Last year, we blew it on Black Friday. So, why do we blow it on Black Friday? Because we underestimated mobile commerce. on Black Friday. So we didn't actually put a mobile factor into our predictive model last year. This year we did. We got Black Friday, we nailed that. We nailed Thanksgiving Day, we nailed Cyber Monday, we missed a full on. So, I mean, and that's the thing. Anyone who does a model knows that, you win some, you lose some. But yeah, so now we'll build in some global stuff and then something else will smack us. I don't know what. Maybe it'll be, the Internet of Things. I have no idea. But I will tell you that who has a big screen phone now that's more than 4.5 inches? Okay, we're laggards here. My goodness, really? Okay, these things are going to change a lot of things going forward in 2015. And I just want to add one thing, just as a note of curiosity, because I can't help myself. We're about to have the single largest mobile video consumption in the United States moment. Anyone have any guesses? Super Bowl. Over 30% of all online video is going to be consumed on a mobile device on that day. So, things are changing. They change all the time. That's what's cool about it, and that's what's scary about it, and that's why everyone kind of looks at this data. And if you're in business, they kind of look at it as a bad thing in a way, because it is like, oh my gosh, really? I can't keep up with all this stuff. So.
Now, earlier you had said that Adobe was processing, some 78% of the data. Where does Google fit into this?
You totally went there.
I told you I would.
Yes, we call them frenemies. We like Android, we don't like, no. So, yeah, the thing is that when you're in the technology business like we are, it turns out, and if anyone wants to know why Omniture won, I'm sure a lot of you have followed Omniture. It's, obviously one of the big Utah success stories. The reason why it won, this might surprise you. The reason why it won is because of data collection. Because Omniture never, ever had a data outage and never missed data collection. So you talk about data centers, you talk about, all of the pipes and all that stuff. That's the actual reason why Omniture won in the marketplace. And so we have all of the enterprise business because that requires really high peak loads and we never miss data collection. And so when it comes to looking at the share of spend, that's where we get that number. And the fact is though that Google has all of the sort of small stuff and that's why they don't have as big a number.
One more question, then we'll do a wrap up.
Joe, we have a marquee event first. Okay. The bartender would like to ask a question.
There's nothing wrong with that. We trust his life.
My question is, ma'am, you said that you were having trouble holding on to people. If they're coming out of college, they're doing their internship, and then they're moving on to better, what they think are cooler places. The gentleman sitting next to you is saying, we're collecting all this information. We know what kind of degrees are coming out of college. Is the state of Utah vying for companies that the young people want to work for to be in Utah? I don't know if that makes any sense. I mean, is the state of Utah going to the new computer company and saying, hey, you ought to come here because everybody speaks the same language, and this is a great place to live, and is the state of Utah using their own information that they're giving away?
The state of Utah can always do better at allowing others to use that information. I think that's probably more Economic Development Corporation of Utah, who's kind of in charge with going out and trying to poach those companies from California and other places. I think that the state and other agencies within the state can do a better job of putting that data out there for the public and businesses to consume that data. That's one of the goals of this open data project, is to put all of this data in one place so that companies can just go in there and see employment rates by county, socioeconomic rates, census rates, educational levels by county, by city. I mean, we've pretty much got everything in there so that companies can go in there. But I think to your point though, it's more Economic Development Corporation of Utah. And that's one of the things that we can and should do better at here in the state of Utah, is because we've got a good product. I mean, we're number 2 at creating jobs. I mean, our employment rate's, really low, so.
We're cheap.
Yep, we're cheap too.
Well, actually, that's part of the problem, that we're cheap. That is actually part of the problem. So here's when it comes right down to it, here's why I can't attract that talent to stay. Because we don't have enough of the super high paying technology jobs so that because this is how it works in Silicon Valley. You work for Facebook for, 3 years, then you go to Twitter and you get like a, 50% raise. And then you go, you work there for 3 years. Then you go to a startup, you cash out maybe. And then you go, to another place that's going to pay you a lot of money. And you jump by jumping jobs, you jump in salary a lot. When you go and work at a company for year upon year upon year, you get 3%. And that's not what people at that age group want. They want to rise their career, they want to rise their title, they want to rise their salary. And there aren't that many companies to jump to here in Utah. So they go to a bigger market where there's a lot more companies to go to. And so the problem is really, all these bigger markets started with entrepreneurship. I go back to it over and over again because that is the thing that we have to get started here. That's why the whole startup SLC thing and all of the things that John is doing and Andy's doing to kind of create that entrepreneurship and what you all are doing is really about getting all of those next high-level jobs to have more different places to go so that employees can basically, play one employer off the other to raise their income.
In closing, on behalf of DC, Mandy, Linda, Thor, myself, and Barry, we'd like to put these 6 people on the spot with who you are, what you do, and what you need. And you've only got like 30 seconds to do it. So starting with you, Nick.
All right, maybe I won't even worry about a microphone. Maybe I will. So Nick Bagley, run the Big Data Utah Users Group, but in my day job, I am a recruiter as well in staffing. So when we're talking about employment, we're talking about all these pieces that hits home directly, right? Every single day, I'm talking about these differences in making these jumps. And here in Utah, it presents like a 10, maybe 12% jump as you move up, right? Right here in Utah, a big data architect makes $130,000 on average. Across the nation, it's closer to $300,000 at this point. And there are companies out there that are really profiting from that. So what do I need? I need the companies that are trying to move up and be able to gain the value from those individuals to reach out to me, because we know them. And I need the individuals who are looking for those types of jobs to reach out to me so I can try and help them move up in their careers as well. And then from the users group perspective, check out bigdatautah.org and find our meetups. And then come out and help us build the community. Our goal is to help Utah become the leader for big data and all the things related to it worldwide. Joel set a deadline for us of March 31st, so wish us good luck on that.
On Utah Geek Events, 501c3 not-for-profit, that's what I do. Really what I do is I put on events and basically I build communities and I train your people. So if you run a company or something else, they'd most likely have come to one of my events and I've helped to make them a better technologist. What do I need? I need money. Yeah, it's simple, it's easy. We sponsor and we do all of this basically for free. We're all volunteers. This is all done in our part-time. We don't keep any of this. This all goes back to the community. So what we need is for you to give money to these sort of events so that we can keep training more and more people so we can make a better community. So that's what we need.
Circle's just like that too, but we're a beneficial corporation. It's the same type of thing. John, who you are, what you do, and what do you need?
Well, I just want to thank you guys for including me. I met Joel a couple months ago, and for the record, he didn't even ask me to be on this. He just told me what time it was.
That's how he does stuff.
I'm with US Bank. I'm a resource. I think, what I would just say is bankers are a resource to the community. We give a lot back to the community. Zions Bank, we're in the room tonight. What a great resource to the community. And we love entrepreneurs. We wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for entrepreneurs. So thank you for including me tonight.
And I'm just going to put in here, guys, the traditional Utah business community has your back. They want to do things with you and for you. And you've hit it a bunch of times tonight, Drew. It all comes down to communication between us. But what I've experienced working with ULI and the investment bank, the commercial bank, and the development community here, there is a collective vision to collaborate that's just awesome. And the only way that it's going to happen is if we all work together and we communicate together. But we've got the means to do it. We've got the money here. We've got the money that's came from Utah that's went elsewhere. It's just a matter of us being able to all get together and maybe using big data, making it happen. Drew, who you are, what you do, what you need?
Yeah, Drew Mingle, State Open Data Coordinator. I work up at Capitol for DTS. Just let us know what data that you would like to see out there from local entities, counties, cities, from state agencies. It's always an ongoing challenge and involves a lot of networking and relationship building for us to kind of break down some of those silos and to get that data. We want to create a platform to make that data available for you folks to use in your businesses, so you can create apps or use it however it is that you use. So we just want to make that available to you, and I assure you we have a governor, we have a legislature that is absolutely committed to having transparency and open data here in the state of Utah.
Awesome.
Tamara Gaffney, I'm Principal Analyst of Adobe Digital Index, and if you want to read my team's work, it's on cmo.com/Adobe-digital-index, or you can just navigate to it off of cmo.com. We put out 30 plus reports a year covering social media, advertising, video, e-commerce, mobile, all the things that we can talk about, we do. And so I guess one thing, read some of our stuff because I think it's going to help you make better strategic decisions, which leads me to the really big ask, which is to create that sort of vibrant community that mirrors Silicon Valley in terms of developing an entrepreneurial environment where we will be able to attract and retain the best and brightest from all of the rest of the country and the world, and create that upward momentum swirl that eventually ends up in economic prosperity for everyone, because it does really trickle all over the place. And so if you do that, then I'll be able to keep that talent that I want to keep in this state, and then we can kind of build from there.
Awesome.
Thandy/Ander, would that be the combination of Phil and Andy? How about you?
My name's Thor Roundy. I'm here every month. I just want to echo what I think Joel said a few minutes ago, which is that this organization, the SL Circle, is all about building the kind of collaboration that Tamara is talking about. If you're coming to this event month after month and you're not meeting people that you can actively do business with, then I would suggest talking to some of the people who are here every month, who are collaborating with each other, who are trying to put some of these things in motion. You know, I'm an attorney. I can help people with their legal questions. I can help with real estate issues. Those are my areas of expertise. I've worked with startups, have interest in companies that are in high tech. You know, Joel talks to everybody in this room multiple times a week about their business ventures. I try to help him keep some of that straight so we can foster more and more communication, get to know you guys better, what you're working on, and how we can start to collaborate and work together. We've got people like, you know, our friends from the holodeck, from, you know, our what we call our concentric circles. These are all people who are about helping you with your business. But if you don't come to our website, tell us who you are, talk to us, interact with us, then we can't build our own big data set of who's participating in building out this vision that we have for what Salt Lake City could be. So I encourage you to get involved, get to know people, kind of accelerate your own conversations within this group, because I think this is a group that is going somewhere in terms of creating more wealth for everybody in the room that gets on board and starts to work together on it.
Awesome.
And in closing, for me over the last year, since we're in our first year of operation with the group that I work with, many of you may not know what's going on with the Eisenhower Fellows, which is an endowment that the U.S. government gave to Ike Eisenhower at the start of his first administration. I and our organization has been picked to be the liaison for the Eisenhower Fellows, which I guess I report to Colin Powell, Henry Kissinger, and George H. Bush Sr. But we've got a visitor coming in. Bill Brown's part of this. There's actually many people in this room that's going to be meeting with GoEd and them. But we have the Vice President for the Americas for FinPro, who represents the government of Finland, who wants to come do business with their 100,000 out-of-work mobile engineers with the state of Utah. That's coming up over Start SLC. We collectively have been able to also interact, John was part of this, Laura was as well, with the group that rebuilt Christchurch with New Zealand. It's our hope, besides being able to have the concentric circles within this room, and what we can do within the state of Utah and the United States, also find collaborative opportunities internationally. So if anything comes to mind, just check out the Eisenhower Fellowship.com, it's ef.org, because they're very interested in what's going on here. We are on the world's radar, and if you've got a big, hairy, audacious goal, to paraphrase the guy that you were talking about earlier, there's many opportunities throughout there, and all it comes down to is asking your neighbor if they could have, if you could give them a little bit of help if you have any type of intuition they have going on. We've got great events coming up. We'll have the speed networking event in February for third Tuesday, the mastery, our business mastery introduction in March. Then we're going to have a big party in April. But don't forget to Start SLC. It's next week, 29th, 30th, 31st. Look it up, startslc.com. We appreciate you coming. We can hang out for about another 30, 45 minutes. Get into these guys' heads. They got some pretty interesting things going on. Thanks for coming.
Nice to meet you. Coming down.